Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
As someone who grew up in the 1970s in industrial Britain and watched from my bedroom window the steel stamping factories belch out black smoke, I've always been a little sceptical by claims from environmental campaigners that pollution in British cities is now reaching critical levels of toxicity. Yet recent headlines proclaim that our children are being exposed to illegal levels of toxic air, and London's Mayor Khan has declared a public health emergency here in the capital. The Mayor's epidemiological studies claim that 9,000 Londoners are dying prematurely every year because of poor air quality, and estimates national fatalities have increased from 40,000 to 60,000 a year. It's worth recalling, isn't it, the Great Smog of December 1952, which was widely regarded as an environmental catastrophe, but claimed only 4,000 lives. So is it true that pollution is killing more than twice the number every year here in the capital and 10 to 15 times as many nationwide? Well, the simple answer is no, it simply is not true. It's a mathematical modelling of the number of premature deaths attributable to pollution, and the figures are derived from calculations of the years of equivalent lives lost across a population. Now, that sounds very confusing, and it is. But if you think about it, that those statistics could be to state that the average loss of life expectancy of the whole adult population is, wait for it, 3 days. Yes, 3 days. It's also worth considering that the pollution here is only a quarter of what it was back in 1970, and the pollution in London is only an eighth of what it is in Delhi, and a quarter of that in Beijing, and substantially lower than that in Paris. So make what you will of that. But Professor Anthony Fu, sadly who's no longer with us, but he was party to this research, and he said the 9,000 number, the figure quoted, is a zombie statistic, and it simply is not true. He said, because it's a zombie statistic, it keeps coming back, and it's very difficult to get rid of it because it is hijacked, it is jumped on by policymakers and businesses. He said, but it simply is not true. And he said, the levels are illegal now, not because they are dangerous. He said they are illegal because we've lowered the targets. He said that's why it's illegal, not because it's dangerous, like I say. And he said we need to stop this irrational hysteria over motor traffic pollution. He said because it's not true. It's difficult to refute when the researcher comes out, isn't it, and says it isn't the case. This is a lie. This is an untruth. And it's discrediting the researchers, it's discrediting the scientists, and it's discrediting credibility in those who are adopting it, like the politicians, like the local authorities, like Mayor Khan. Now, I'm going to come to that because what we are in and what we are verging on is the biggest fight of our lives, isn't it? Simply because next to Brexit, you could say, the biggest issue, and it might be even bigger than Brexit, is the environment, and nobody can buck the environmental issue, can they? No political party, every political party has seemingly had to adopt this zombie statistic of 9,000 lives. And I think taxi drivers, we were to blame for most of those 9,000 lives. I quote Paul Bond here when he says, well, you know, we're at the height, the same level as the NOx emissions, aren't we? He said, so if that many people are dying, we should be the first victim, shouldn't we? And he said, and even if we aren't, he said, we wouldn't be applying for hire because we'd be going to funerals. There'd be that many dying from this pollution. And so when you look at it like that, it's ludicrous. But beyond that, and this is a very, very serious issue, because beyond that, it is being used by the policymakers to engineer your extinction. That is what is happening. Now, the protests we're engaging in at the moment, they are there and happening, and there is no compromise. And the reason there's no compromise, it's not a question of, oh, well, we might be able to maneuver around it. It's just one road. No, there's no compromise here. And a compromise is a nice word for a sacrifice, isn't it? But a compromise here means you are now a private vehicle. You are being treated in every respect as a private car. So the taxi trade either offers a public service, a public hire vehicle, or you are a private vehicle. Now, rideshare and private hire, that's an argument for them to have, but they are also a car, because instead of someone using their own car, they now use someone else's or share someone else's car. So that's an argument for them. But nevertheless, we're either a public hire service or we are a private vehicle and will be treated as such. No one should favour policy on the back of a lie. No one should favour this lack of transparency. Wars are created out of this lack of transparency. And I'm calling upon every politician and every environmentalist, and I'm opening myself out there, I know. Every politician, every councillor in a local authority, and I'm calling out Mayor Khan for adopting a lie and implementing policy, creating policy on the back of it. No one should favour that. It doesn't matter if you like black cabs, it doesn't matter if you take black cabs or you don't take black cabs. Nobody should favour policy being implemented on the back of a lie. And that's what we are experiencing at the moment. At the moment, we're at the coalface, to coin a phrase, with Camden Council, who are pursuing and perpetuating this myth against the licensed taxi trade. There's a safety issue I have with Camden Local Authority. They're lying about that because they're enmeshing statistics and they don't consider it being impermissible for them to do so. They say they can do that. Why should they regard separating the stats as evidence? I say if you don't separate the stats, if you don't differentiate between private hire and taxis, then your scheme is not about safety. And self-evidently, it's not about pollution and the environment either, is it? They are restricting the only public service, door-to-door, on-demand service that is about liberty and safety. They disregard that, then this is a phony implementation on policy and a vendetta against the licensed taxi trade. If they're doing it on the back of the Mayor's mass transport policy, maybe they should all be referring to the Taxi Task and Finish report, because that was democratic, it was exhaustive in its nature, and that's what they should go by. A democratic decision is not a consensus of opinion by your mates in the council, is it? And if Camden doesn't regard an orderly and peaceful demonstration as something that they should address, then maybe it needs to go up a notch, yes? No to Camden's autocratic dictatorship. No to their disregard of the consultation that supported taxis having unrestricted access, and no to Camden's disregard of local businesses and their own residents. It is immoral to adopt a lie and implement it as a policy. So I'll leave it there. Be there, because either we are a public service, public hire vehicle, or we are a private vehicle. The consequences are enormous. Be there. Defend the future of your trade.
If this station's not your cup of tea,
then drink coffee! 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 Coffee!
coffee!
Drink coffee!
100% music.
100% news.
100%
Information. 100% guaranteed. Thought you might say that.
London Taxi Radio, the cabby's choice.